This podcast is not intended to provide any investment advice. The opinions expressed here by either the hosts or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of PSA, Collectors Holdings, or any of their affiliates. Any discussion of collectible values in the past or present is not a guarantee of future performance.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Green here, and today we are introducing the guest submissions series here on the PSA pod. Guest submissions will feature in-depth hobby conversations. We'll be welcoming a variety of guests into our studio, from prominent expert leaders here within the collectors family to respected hobby voices and personalities across all genres. The goal here is to inform and to entertain from several different angles. Whether that's discussing product developments and enhancements that improve the PSA customer experience, or just simply talking shop and collecting from different perspectives, collectors of all levels and experience will enjoy what lies ahead. To kick things off today on the series, we're going to be joined by Carlin, the Director of Customer Care here at Collectors. Chris became a giant in the industry over the past 2 decades during his time at Upper Deck. In the past year since coming to Collectors, he has not only gone all in on new collecting ventures to learn everything about PSA's services and processes from the customer POV, but he's also used that intel and brought his wealth of experience over to help the company's customer support efforts take major strides forward. We are going to talk with him about all of it, including some notable glimpses at what lies ahead in 2023 and beyond, as the customer experience here at PSA only continues to improve. Well, Chris, thanks for taking the time to come back to the studio. This is your second appearance here on the PSA pod, and it's pretty crazy to think that it's now been about a year since you've been with Collectors.
Yeah, it is incredibly fast paced here, and it's just a lot of fun. I came from Upper Deck and knowing a lot about one business, and now to learn about every manufacturer and other business divisions that I didn't have a lot of exposure to, like coins, currency, video game grading, Funko. It's just been awesome to kind of drink it all in. And I am like a weird, fiercely brand loyal guy, Ryan. So when I was at Upper Deck, I was only really interested in Upper Deck stuff. And now at Collectors, it's just so cool because I feel like a whole world of collecting has opened up to me. So I'm having a blast. I've got 2 young kids who are 9 and 11, 2 boys who have been really enjoying, diving into the hobby more on the collector's side. And we talk a lot about, should we grade this? Should we not grade this? Things along those lines. So it's been a blast.
It's funny, when you came in the first time, we love to have, when here internal guests come to the show, we love to have them introduce themselves as collectors. And you talked quite a bit about all those like really cool, like Upper Deck employee exclusives that are really sought after in the hobby at wide that you had. But your collection, as you've been here for a year, like you said, it's really expanded. And one thing I found really cool is you've gotten more into, on the card side, oddball items and just really unique things that you don't see every day. I see some in front of you right now. So like, give us some examples here based on that stack of slabs right in front of you.
Well, one thing I think is really important to help me learn everything that the company does is to submit items myself and to submit a variety of different types of items. And I was blown away by some of the things that we grade, such as matchbooks, that you've got to remove the matches from them before submitting. But how does that work? And how do you get that pesky staple out of the middle and submit it so you get a good grade? But then, looking at different things, I've really expanded the amount of items I collect while kind of consolidating my collection a little more. These notes are really cool from 1934 that are offered through PCGS, which are banknotes that were done around one of the world wars for Hawaii, because it was believed that the Japanese may destabilize the government by basically dropping notes, counterfeit notes overboard. So they created these unique Hawaii notes that were utilized for a couple of years to make sure that didn't happen. So oddball things like that, and they're really part of history. Like I love the PSA DNA items in encapsulated holders are just awesome. We talked earlier, the checks, I think, are just undervalued. Companies are going to need to use those for making cut signature cards in the future. So I think that there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity with those. So I love this Ty Cobb that I've got that's paid to the order of cash because he signed the front and he signed the back, which is pretty darn cool. But one of the checks I really love is to this florist out of LA. And it's cool because it's signed by Joe DiMaggio. And Joe DiMaggio used to send flowers to Marilyn Monroe's grave. And this is believed to be a check to cover one of those payments. But yeah, it's been a blast so far this year, and really just trying out new things and definitely new manufacturers as well. I'm chasing a lot of the new top stuff. My kids and I love the Star Wars stuff that's coming out. So Mandalorian Chrome, we've been all about, but there's just other oddball items. Again, like I like a lot of musicians, so I like Neil Diamond, an oddball one. But there's a Mr. Softy pop disc that we grade that's really kind of cool. And then business cards, I think, are really underrated too by PSA DNA that are signed. One of my favorites is I ran into Gary Bettman like a lot when I worked at Upper Deck. And so to have a signed business card from him and a PSA slab is really cool. But you definitely got to have like a Phil Knight card. And my family at dinner time will often watch Wheel of Fortune. So to have a signed Vanna White, Pat Sajak business card is pretty cool too. But one of the things that I love so much since I've gotten here is learning a little bit more about the world of coins through PCGS. Like every little boy's fantasy is shipwreck and finding gold and treasure. And I've watched 11 seasons of The Curse of Oak Island, and I still get excited when they find wood, you know? So learning about shipwreck gold and shipwreck treasure has been really, really cool. Now, most of it's not cheap, but this particular one is really cool to me. It's from 1783. It is a real from Mexico. What's cool about it is it was supposed to be on a ship called the El Cazador, and it was pretty integral to Spain that this shipment of coins gets to its destination, because they were kind of losing hold on their economy. The bills that they had weren't working, and they needed this to kind of stabilize things. Well, they set out with 14 tons of coins, and ship went down. And all those coins were thought to be lost forever. Then fast forward to 1993, there's this, I believe it's 93, shipping vessel is out there. They thought they caught their net on that it was snagged, and they brought up all these coins.
Wow.
And they found the ship in 300 feet of water and were able to do some searches on it and bring up some of this treasure. And I just think it's like incredibly cool that you could hold, treasure in your hand and have it in your collection through PCGS. But what makes the real and some of these other coins super cool is often on the back of some of these early coins, they have pillars, and the pillars of Hercules are one of them. But if you imagine a pillar, often they will have a ribbon that kind of flows around them in an S-shaped fashion. You can kind of see right there. And they say that's where the sign for money came from, the dollar sign, from a pillar and that S-shaped fashion behind it. So owning something like that it's a cool investment because it's tangible and I can look at it and not like a stock, like, oh, did it go up or down?
Yeah.
But it's got a great story to it. And in a PCGS slab, it just looks really great.
And of course, I see a baseball card on the top of the great Pete Incaviglia. As many in the hobby know, you are, very public, very accessible on Twitter.
Yeah.
Where at Pete Incaviglia is your handle.
Yeah.
You've never changed it over the years, and I respect that. We're going to have it linked in the description here too, in case people want to reach out and get in touch with you. But I see some 86 Topps Tiffany there too.
Yeah. So Pete Incaviglia was my favorite baseball player growing up. He would either strike out in a glorious fashion or hit a home run to Mars. Yeah. But just kind of the over exaggerated 80s player, who's just barrel chested and hits it to the moon. So, I mean, I don't know what what happened with him with regard to steroid controversies or things like that, but I know it was a lot of fun to watch and I enjoyed him. So when Twitter came out, it was kind of a new animal and no one really knew what to do with your Twitter handle.
How to brand yourself and all that.
So I was like, I'll just put my favorite baseball player and see what happens. And one of my favorite signed items I have is from him, and he basically inscribed "nice Twitter handle." So I would make it available to him if he ever wanted it, just because I'm such a huge fan. But he's never asked.
You've been building up this incredible collection of items over the last year, but in your spare time, you've been overseeing a lot of really interesting developments on the customer care side.
Yeah.
Here at Collectors and most specifically PSA. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What have been the biggest strides in customer care over the course of the last year? Because obviously for customers these last couple of years, there have been a lot of pain points when, dealing, trying to get a hold of someone and getting issues ironed out, but so many strides have been made. What's really stood out to you and what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I think the last time I was on, we kind of talked if your first year is a success, what would it look like? And really, to me, it was people and making the investment in people and really just making sure that we have a good leadership team in place for customer care. And I was blessed to inherit a very good team already. They just didn't have the resources and everything that they needed to be successful. So part of my job was coming in to fight for them and fight for more and really show data that would lead the organization to understand that we do need a little more support there. So um, over the last year, we have basically doubled the size of our customer care team
Wow.
to make sure that we can handle issues for customers in a more expeditious fashion and to help out quicker. We've reduced email turnaround time to pretty much 24 hours. Phones we're still working to get where I feel really comfortable with, but we're deploying 4 new agents to the phones this week. So it does take a little while to get people trained up. And that was another thing that we looked at is how are we doing training? What's the best ways to do it? One of the trainings that we provided our team was an abbreviated version of Greater U, which is a very intense training program here on terms of how to be a grader. But it was just incredibly important for our team to be able to articulate to our customers better what are, being able to talk like a grader a bit more. So through training, through scaling up, we've been able to really improve the customer experience here. And my favorite part about working here is getting out and meeting customers face to face. And we've been able to do a ton more in a post-pandemic world
Mhm.
with shows and events. Working with the marketing team, we've been able to run some highly successful smaller drop-off events at local hobby shops in the Southern California region. But we hope to expand that and do much more in the future. So it's been really great.
All of these things lead into something that I believe we talked about when you were first here as well, which is just making this a more thoughtful organization. And that's company wide, what we're trying to do, building goodwill with our customers. And what are some of the lengths your team has gone to really showcase being more thoughtful and having those really nice touch points with customers?
Yeah, I love the fact that here at Collectors, it feels like our culture is still evolving.
Yes.
And by having and establishing certain values that any customer can see, being very transparent at collectors.com/values, you could learn what we are focused on. And much of it is customer driven. So for me, that's exciting to see. But we're continuing to evolve here and make things better. And it's just been a pleasure to be a part of. But really, where we want to take things is being more thoughtful and showing that we care about our customers. And I think you do that in a lot of little ways. Really, I like the Nordstrom's model of sending a handwritten note to customers. Just when you're thinking about them.
Mhm.
Recently, we ran some small campaigns where we sent out card cookies, PSA card cookies to fans around Valentine's Day. We did some Jordan Valentines as well that we had slabbed. So I want to continue to do more fun things like that tied to key events. And then obviously being at events, making sure that the customers feel the love from PSA because it gets really busy at PSA
Yeah.
events. So to be able to break off from the booth and talk to some customers or make sure that we are available in evenings or things like that is really important. And one of the things I really want to work on is how do we expand our footprint at events because we are so busy during the day. Can we start to show earlier and make ourselves available beforehand or in the evenings around train nights, things along those lines. So that's something I'm definitely going to be putting a focus on.
So you learn a lot in the course of a year.
Yeah.
And I know that was the case for myself. I know it hasn't quite been a year for producer Drew here. I know he can say the same. So let's talk about what you've learned. We chatted a little bit about this before we were recording, and I thought you had some really interesting insights based on tips for customers, especially new customers.
Yes.
One thing we're seeing at a lot of these drop-off events, like you mentioned, we're seeing a lot of first-time submitters, and we've all been PSA customers before we worked here. It can be a daunting process, but then once you do it the first time, you figure it out really fast. To make that first time a little easier for new customers, based on what you've learned here in the last year, what are some of those tips that when you're talking to customers, you're making sure to share?
Yeah, I think there's a few, and the first is just start small. One of the first things that I bought for myself was a light with magnification, and they're pretty cheap on Amazon, $30.
Mhm.
But just to be able to look at my cards under there made a big difference, and I was able to see things that I wouldn't normally see. And I think we're all programmed to look for centering first, corners next, edges after that. Well, surface is frequently forgotten,
Oh, yeah.
and it is something that is incredibly important to cradle the card under light and move it around different light points to find any defects on the surface, because often you'll find a crease, which is an absolute killer that'll take it down to a 5 or 6. And I just think that's important to look at it before sending. And then again, starting small, maybe just doing a couple cards at a couple different service levels to see what you get back. There is a lot of anxiety around results with our company, and results is an organization you kind of want to hear from, because it means that your items are more valuable than you initially put in your declared values. We have to change pricing sometimes based on the value of a collectible. But going through that process and working with them and seeing it's actually pretty darn easy. You basically just say, okay, your order moves right along. So I think that starting small is incredibly important. I think that, there's other little things that you want to look at when you're shipping items. Do you want to ship them at a different time? Like if there's a big snowstorm, all the hubs are going to be kind of filled up and stuck. So if you're seeing flight delays for passengers, there's probably going to be delays for shipments as well. So if you're shipping from Boston to California and it's going to go through that hub in Tennessee, you might want to think about holding off or sending an expedited method or something along those lines. So
Plus, you talked about the importance of, and this is an easy one for new customers to maybe stumble with, is the importance of when you're entering your cards on a submission form, keeping them in that order when they ship in, because it really affects everything. It affects, how long the order takes at receiving, which can slow down how long it takes to get to grading, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of starts that snowball. So it all starts with that submission process.
it is the smallest little thing, Ryan, but it is incredibly important to have your cards in the same order that they are on the submission form. Helps out our receiving team tremendously. So all these little things can really help make your experience better. And I'm just happy that I could be here to kind of explain that to folks. So I think it's great.
We talked a little bit about what you've learned as far as our research team and our research capabilities.
Oh, yes.
I think anybody who works here and gets to know our operation and our operations team, the level of expertise that is in our research department is really an asset.
Yeah.
And it can be for customers who, maybe you get a little stressed out sweating things in the online submissions center. Am I picking the right card from the drop down menu when I'm entering details? Your big takeaway was don't sweat it so much.
Yeah. When I worked at Upper Deck, PSA's research team would reach out to me. So I knew about them, but I figured it was just like a handful of people there, like 5 or 6. And then I came to work here and I saw the room and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Look at all these people and everyone is skilled in a different area. And they know every release backwards and forth.
Oh, yeah.
Like you want to talk about card nerds, roll through our research team.
You can't stump them.
Yeah, they are very impressive. So again, when folks are filling out their online submission, I think there's this again anxiety that if my card doesn't populate when I'm entering it into that field, that it doesn't exist and PSA doesn't grade it. Well, one good trick is to look on eBay and see what it says exactly on the flip or label, and you could enter it just like that. But as long as you're putting in as much information as our research team needs, they're going to be able to assign it the right code and make sure that it gets entered. But again, you just kind of want to look out there and make sure it is something that has actively been graded.
Like you mentioned, the best way to get yourself comfortable as a PSA customer is just to test things out with submissions. And again, looking over here, you are a testament to that in the course of the last year. I want to know a little bit more about some of those things I'm seeing over there. Like I'm seeing a Darth Vader sign photo. What am I looking at here?
Yeah. So this is a cool item that I actually got. I got a few of these by listening to the PSA podcast, and you guys were touting an RR auction for PSA encapsulated items, and I went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs there. So this is a James Earl Jones, Carrie Fisher, Darth Vader, Princess Leia item.
Wow.
Mark Cuban signed dollar bill, which I think is super cool. I love the old Bond movies, and Jaws was my favorite bad guy. So Roger Moore and Richard Kiel autograph is really cool while they're trying to kill each other. So I don't even know what's in Jaws's mouth here, but it looks like
couldn't tell.
Something bad happened there. And then this one's one of my favorites. It's I happen to be a distant relative of George Carlin. So my brother found this out. He worked in the entertainment industry and talked with George. So I was like, well, I should have a cool George Carlin piece in my collection. So this is a letter where someone was writing to George and basically asking him ideas about an act in a club that he wanted to open up. But what I think is so cool is he really typed it, and there is whiteout in an area.
Oh,
too.
wow.
So it's very distinctive of this is from 1978. So of the era that we were in then.
How cool are those oversized PSA DNA holders? I just got my first ones back last week from a DNA submission, my first one ever.
Yeah.
I held it in hand, and it's really like imagine a card slab, but
it's like a jumbo card. Yeah.
10x the size, and like just how substantial it felt in hand and how impressive it was. All I could think was, I need more of these.
Well, I have a Kobe score sheet that I just had authenticated for starters. And this goes back to why you submit different things and try different things out. And then I was like, well, it's cool that it's authenticated, but God, it would look so much cooler in one of those slabs. And then, I had it encapsulated, and I was like, now I know it's safe, like these you can, I wouldn't want to toss them around, but they are substantial. They feel great and they look great. They display awesome. And with the PSA flip on there, it definitely adds eye appeal to me.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about year one for you here. Year two.
Yeah.
What are your big goals here, especially on the customer care side?
So we are going to be doing a lot more to engage our customers. So by adding more people, we feel like we could better service our customers in a more expeditious fashion, but also in a more caring fashion. So I hope that we're going to see more and more stories of PSA, PCGS, WADA customer care, really engaging our fans, PSA autograph, customer care, engaging fans in new and exciting ways. We're looking at different swag items we could produce that really meet the needs of each customer base and would excite them. And again, just being out there and being more open, I think, is of critical importance to our success. Being able to speak with people and about how the submission process works and dispelling some myths there. I think there's a lot of myths about if I send in 5 cards as opposed to 80, I'll have a better chance of getting better grade. There's just all these urban myths. So anytime we can be more present and more in front of our customers at events, those are opportunities I definitely want to take advantage of. And I think there's opportunities to make in-person events even more special. So we are looking at some things that we'll be announcing very soon that'll be opportunities for people to get up close and personal with PSA in a way that they haven't in a long time.
Awesome. It's been, even internally, we can see the difference over the course of a year, and can't wait to see where we are a year from now.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We employ some just tremendous people who, if you take away anything from listening to this today, it's the collectors really cares. Our employees really care. They're invested in the hobby, much like I am. We enjoy collecting and seeing what our fans have. One customer was sending me a happy email last week, and he was showing me a card that he just got back from us, and I was like, show me the back. I want to see the whole thing, So it's just a lot of fun to be able to engage with our fans this way. And we're total card geeks and coin geeks and currency geeks too. So we're your people, I guess I would say.
It's a great way of putting it. Well, again, if you want to reach out to Chris Carlin, at Pete Incaviglia on Twitter, we're going to share a link to find him on Twitter in the description here below. Chris, thank you once again for taking the time to join us. I can't wait to have you back.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
And we'll be back again next week with more here on the PSA Pod.